What's going on, workforce? Brian here.
Chris here.
And today we're bringing you another spicy topic. This one's got Chris. He said some words that we won't say here in this video.
This one's been fermenting.
This is definitely like hit a note with him. So just to kind of summarize it for you guys, Chris, why don't you tell us what we're about to embark on? Because this is a spicy topic.
Yes. And because we're trying to get more in the habit of a little bit of self-promo at the beginning of every video, we are giving away a copy of the complete edition of Final Fantasy XIV on the 31st, thanks to Gabriel. And then starting on the 1st, we're going to be giving away Lunar Whale coasters on stream, possibly some more things to come. So come hang out with us on stream Monday through Friday, 8 to 2 CST. Thank you, Crap Post 14, for once again delighting my day. I woke up to checking Reddit and all of the other social medias in the morning, and it said, I found this great community, by the way. And now know the reason that we are good at 14 is because we're losers in real life. That is the title of the Reddit post, and it is referring to a Guardian article by Eleanor Robertson from 2018 that says, I don't want to get good at gaming. I want to escape the relentless pressure to improve myself. And the subtext there that they have decided is their subtitle is, I enjoy video games. I'm not good at playing them, and I don't want to be. And so this is where the Crap Post 14 community, which can sometimes be associated with toxic elitism, runs into an article that self-proclaims to be toxic casualism. And so they are going to collide into each other. And even though there is 2 years of distance between them, none of that matters because this is just so far to one side.
So let's spend some time with this article, guys. As always, with any article we reference, we'll always include links in the description. If you go and decide to kind of be vocal about this outside of our comment section, always try to remember to be respectful to anybody who has written any kind of articles, even if we don't agree with their opinion. But anyhow, let's go ahead and dive into the meat. Chris, why don't you take us through the article?
It's great that the Guardian would cover this game. That is a major press outlet. It is incredibly important that this game can get mainstream support. I am thrilled. And it didn't cover this game particularly. It was covering the concept. But like gaming being covered in the Guardian is a good thing. So thank you for the article in advance. I strongly disagree with the particular opinion that you have. So
thanks for posting. Your opinion is
thank you for posting. Here comes my disagreement. So like a lot of idiots with nothing better to do, I enjoy playing video games.
I didn't even read any of this. I was like,
you didn't read any of it.
I literally have it up on my screen. And I'm just like, oh, there's pretty flowers. I'm being advertised to you. You can't see the pretty flowers right now.
Everything you enjoy in life is stupid, Brian. So like a lot of idiots with nothing better to do, I enjoy playing video games. This is a recent development. During my childhood, we didn't have enough money for a Nintendo, and my parents were deeply suspicious of them. Anyway, rightfully so, given that my sister and I are both what you might call indoorsy types, if you were being really polite. I enjoy video games, but I'm not good at playing them. I lack certain gamers' intuition. Is this wall going to be breakable? Which path is the game trying to lead me down? If I dive into this lake, am I going to find a box of treasure or immediately drown and have to watch a cutscene of my character's inert corpse being ripped apart by writhing fish monsters? I also seem to be terrible at distinguishing individual elements in most computer-generated landscapes, and it takes me a lot of squinting and screaming, what is this, to figure out which a jumble of prisms is the lever I am supposed to be pulling.
I want to jump in here because what they're describing right here is actually very common. One of the things that we've actually seen in studies within just kind of like the computer programming and mathematics world is that there was actually a period of time where we saw a big dip in female people working within the space in college and beyond, while they excelled up to a point. And what it turned out when like you looked at it, a lot actually had to blame Nintendo on. When the big crash of the 80s happened, the Nintendo had to pick if they weren't advertising themselves as a computer, they were advertising themselves as a toy. And in the toy aisles, they were separated by boys and girls, and they picked boys. And so there was actually the sense of people were going into a certain degree, like in high school or into college, and there was this baked inherent knowledge that all of a sudden everybody had, and there was a group, in this case female, that didn't have that inherent knowledge because they weren't taking apart their Nintendos. They weren't playing these games. And so what she's describing here is actually very common if you didn't grow up with it. So it's very easy to kind of dismiss.
It's not bound by gender.
That knowledge.
I've met guys that didn't grow up with it that have the same lack of click the box, does the thing.
Correct.
Right?
It's
Question
that
marks mean
experience.
something. Exclamation marks mean something. Glowing means something. Platformers move left to right, and it's disconcerting when they move the other way. All of these just baked in
experiences that we've all
we're
shared.
just aware of.
Yeah.
Right, that when you get handed a joystick for the first time, the move from one joystick in 64 to two joystick was stark for me. But now it's totally fine.
Did you ever have your
that's
like?
just a you know.
Did you ever have your
from
mom
here,
like
she does
play or
use
your
some
dad
language
play?
and stuff, so just be aware at this point
Yeah.
if you have the volume on. So while playing, I'm usually lucky if I can go an hour without getting stuck on one pixel of ledge space where moving an inch will mean falling to my death and having to repeat the last half hour because I forgot to save the game. In these situations, I usually Google around for solutions. If the game is popular or a couple years old, there invariably have been people trying to get out of the same tricky spot. The other invariable part is for that one reason, and often many, the replier to the asker is just get good. Get good. This basically means try harder, you lazy piece of shit. Or if you're reading it very generously, you can do it, mate. Keep pouring hours of your finite existence on this earth into achieving this millisecond perfect muscle twitch reaction that will enable you to beat this cartoon nemesis that looks like a cross between a bedbug and a rum ball. I find this response baffling. I don't want to get good at video games. I play video games purely for escapist reasons, and part of what I'm trying to escape is the relentless pressure to improve myself. If I wanted to develop a new skill, or increase my tolerance for repeated failure, or become more resilient, I'd just put down the controller and engage in the rest of my hyper-competitive millennial life, in which complacency puts you on the breadline and contentment is something you can only experience vicariously through looking at pictures of cats lying in the sun. That paragraph, that last paragraph right there, is the single most revealing paragraph of this entire article. The idea that getting good at a game is in lieu of getting good at something else.
Yeah.
That every time I improve at a video game, I am actively taking brain power that I should have shut down the game and gone and learned a language or a skill that applied to me at work or something that matters, because games do not. Skills in games do not apply to the outside world. There is no improvement of motor skill function. There is no improvement of getting better at reading. There is no ability of getting better at gaining visual context clues, at learning the depth of emotions within the story of a video game. That there is nothing to be gained from video games. They are purely there as a form of entertainment. Mindless entertainment that even movies and music cannot challenge or grow us as human beings.
Right.
And that is incredibly insulting to an entire genre of art. It is incredibly insulting.
I didn't get anything from this Mona Lisa. It was a complete waste of my time.
I could have tried to get better at painting, but I decided to do something valuable. Like it is incredibly dismissive. And I find this response baffling. In the previous paragraph is where it should have been a note of, I do not understand this other point of view. Stop there. Not, I do not understand this point of view. Therefore, that entire point of view must be wrong.
Correct.
I have viewed all of the doors. I have picked the best door. It is the only good door. And by going through it, all other doors must suck. It's incredibly dismissive. There's a name for a frustrating difficulty activity you undertake on a regular basis in order to hit arbitrary KPIs. Work. So much online gaming culture seems to consist of treating games like work. Maybe this is because about 2/5 of people think their actual job adds nothing important to the world and could be eliminated tomorrow. This relationship between increasingly meaningless work and increasingly work-like video games is well illustrated in releases like Farming Simulator and American Truck Simulator, which allow you to experience the insane thrills of having a middle-of-the-road job.
Man, what an insult to farmers and truck drivers.
So there's a natural,
I'm sorry you don't like to eat, lady, because it's
the single largest employer in America is driving a truck for a living, by the way. So, cool. Small group of people, they're bound not to speak up. So there is
we know a truck driver.
Anyway. It is bred into humans.
Yeah.
It's incredibly important. where we naturally have a desire to see something nurture and grow. It's what allows us to care for our children. It's what allows us to care for crops. It's what allows us to invest in something when the payoff will not be for a substantial amount of time. As we've moved into a society where more and more things are automated, or we don't see where our food comes from or where the products we buy come from, we no longer see them as the response of a very long and arduous process, where something like the Suez Canal being blocked by a freighter and being 12% of the world's shipping is an enormous issue. Yeah. There were times when ships had to go around the Horn of Africa, and we could see a return to that if this digging doesn't quickly resolve that. It's a huge deal, but we don't see it. It's over there. Gosh, I went to the store and they were just out of shirts in my size. That's inconvenient. We don't see it. And games like this let that part of us out. It's why Farmville is incredibly successful. It's why games have retention mechanics like dailies. Mm-hmm. It's why we see growth of cosmetics. It's why those work. And whether you like them or don't like them, it's why that part of our lizard brain locks into games having that, because it rewards us for our loyalty. It rewards us in seeing growth of a character. It's one of the large appeals of RPG characters, is that ongoing, I invested something, so I have something for tomorrow.
This goes beyond just that, though, because when we start factoring in our digital selves, our digital lives, I was listening to a podcast today just talking about how, like, the government can, without warrants, track us in different ways. It was just utterly fascinating. And this isn't meant to, like, kick that off into a discussion, but it's meant to say, like, what would life be like without a cell phone? Like, just go do that. Go not have a cell phone in this world. You can completely choose that. But what does it cost you at that point? It costs you contacts and opportunities for work and opportunities to have all these services and conveniences, and there's the increasing cost of it is exponential. And where 20 years ago, 40 years ago, having a cell phone, like, what was that? But now all of a sudden that is so important. And because of that, there's all these things. That also applies to our content creation. That also applies to ourselves on the internet as a part of our characters. A digital representation of either you, who you want to be, or who you aren't and don't want to be, but you just want to step into this play, right? Same thing with Farming Simulator, same thing with American Truck Simulator and things like that. Like, I want to be a farmer for a day. Like, this is like, you can step in and you can live in this thing. You can have a level of escapism, and then you can also have other types of experiences. There's multiple layers of types of movies. There's not just one genre movie. Oh, here's the one book that we all have read over and over again. You can have adventure books. You can have education books. You can have all of these things. And yeah, it's just, she's definitely leaning into the one note, like, either be productive or get out. Anyway.
And it's true of every hobby. There are people who work out well past the point of gaining a cardiovascular advantage, where you have people who are an accountant by daylight and are a competitive Spartan runner or CrossFitter on the weekends. My dad had a UPS man for years that is now semi-pro in like the UFC style fights. He goes and does that for a living, and his UPS driver would show up with all these bruises and stuff because his hobby was fighting. And so there are people that take this past that degree. They have an interest in music where they play in a band at a coffee shop, and some people take that on the road. Some people go to trivia nights and they're interested in other people doing music, where their knowledge is not even how to do the music, it's just knowledge of other people having done it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so having something where the stakes are lower is incredibly nice. Having something where I want to get better at a video game, and if I fail to get better tonight, it doesn't matter. When I go to work and I have to improve at something for my job is on the line. I have to learn that skill by a certain date, or I have to wait another year for my performance review, or I risk being cut in the next job cut, or I risk not getting a raise that makes a difference in my standard of living, and all that stuff matters. And so if you have a licensure or something like that you have to do for your job, that certificate, it's school, it's mandatory. And some people thrive in that atmosphere, but many people don't. And with video games, I just want to try to beat this hard level, and I'm going to try this week for an hour, and then I'm going to log out, and it doesn't matter. And I can feel like I'm improving, and I can also feel like it doesn't matter. And there's a beauty in having that halfway step between doing nothing and hard improving that video games, or whatever art form you're into, improve at. And just because somebody chooses to be on the hard end of optimizing, or says, you know what, I'm not really feeling like optimizing, there's not a wrong path unless you're actively ruining other people's, or going out to just tell other people their view is wrong when they're not doing anything to hurt anybody. Like, she's not saying, I don't like that people ruined my gameplay experience. She's implying anybody who clears Ultimate World firsts is a moron. So She quoted a tweet that said, "My age 10, video games should be cartoony and fun. My age 24, harvesting these virtual turnips simulates control I wish I had in my real life." And she said, "This tweet displays a sense of self-awareness that is weirdly lacking in the legions of Get Good online posters. Rather than acknowledging the real-life deficits in meaning and achievement that make the productive approach to gaming such an enticing prospect, some gamers project this sense of shame onto other people who aren't as good as they are." That's much calmer than how she's previously said this.
Yeah.
So Nintendo thinks people are idiots and kids are too dumb to learn how to play. So they added an auto feature so you can watch the game play itself, grumbles poster Milky Trousers about a cruise control feature in Mario Kart. Newsflash, Milky Trousers, this is entertainment we're talking about. This is an object people purchase in order for it to provide them with a pleasurable experience. If someone wants to buy Mario Kart and set it up so that they get to sit there and watch the cart drive itself, who cares? Imagine trying to explain to Max Weber that a crucial constituency left defending the maligned Protestant work ethic in the 21st century would be guys on gaming forums complaining that children don't spend enough time sitting in front of a TV. Why is this any more or less valuable than you quoting Max Weber? Why is displaying a greater amount of book knowledge that you will never use to help you shop at the grocery store, to help you optimize a TPS report? Like, why? Why is that better? Why is the fact that I can listen to a history podcast on a road trip any more valuable than sitting there playing on a Nintendo Switch? So on one hand, she's saying we should be tolerated as casual gamers. I'm a guy that spent 6.5 hours on a stream last night clicking a sign. That happened. I ran Circus Tower all day today. I should be allowed to be that casual. But the moment I log in on Tuesdays and I start uploading my parses to try to get better at the very same game, I'm wrong. And I am flocking that in the face of years of academic research that has said that we should be productive as a society, because I choose to put it towards something that doesn't immediately put brick and mortar into somebody living in a house. Like, that's just... If I'm going to enjoy the absurd capitalist soma of video games, the last thing I want to do is feel like I'm being badgered by a superior at a dead-end job. Don't take shortcuts. You need to upgrade your basic skills. Improve at the core mechanics through repetitive practice regimes, say so many gamers. All right, calm down, regional manager Gleb Flange. Nobody will ever be as good as you are at harvesting virtual turnips. Now let me get back to rotting my brain.
Like, at the core of it, that is such... I mean, that feels almost like a 90s viewpoint. That video games, like, yeah, anything can rot your brain. Anything in excess can essentially, like, too much TV. It's all about a balance, right? It's all about striking that aspect.
Watching
and
TV.
so if she, like her, like what you say, her most important statement was up there. She views video games as just like with that 90s mindset that this is complete, is pointless for the sake of pointless. That it's only hurting you, and essentially like, okay, just like, oh, you know, I'd be very curious as to, about her stance on recreational drugs in that regards, just because it's like, okay, like,
I mean, you're dyslexic and you've told me a number of times that video games is what gave you the tool to read, and now you write and present code for a living. You run your own program company, you write your own code, you present that very academically to clients at a very high-end level in a field that matters.
Yeah, it actually gives me a competitive edge. Now, the dyslexia is still a thing that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis.
It
didn't fix that, but essentially it helped give me... It gives a lot of people, I think a lot of people who go into programming go with it in an interest to making video games. That's what I studied. That's what I studied in college. And that understanding game design actually has a direct correlation that improves application within business design. How do you make something rewarding and intuitive and allow them people to use it where it makes sense, and then you want people to keep coming back, right? Because I don't want to make a one-use application that does the one thing. That's great, but how can I create this value in the sense that brings it in? And that's just it's just gamification. Game theory really comes into play, I think, and that's why I've always enjoyed working and hiring people out of the game industry, which I've done a couple times from Gearbox, because they're here in the area. And it's like, at some point your project's done, so you always end up having these waves of programmers who are looking for work, and they were tired of that constant, here's work, oh, there's no work, oh, the game did well, oh, the game didn't do well. Like, you never really had some security. That's what actually prevented me not prevented. It was my decision to not go into game design professionally because I was like, the ups and downs of the industry are too volatile, and I knew I wanted to be a dad. I knew me and my wife wanted to have kids, and I wanted to be able to at least provide. It might not be like, oh my God, we just made enough money to last us 3 years in 1 month, but at least it's a consistent, steady flow that I know that we'll get paid tomorrow, we'll get paid the next
because
day.
you have other goals, right?
Yeah.
You also want to have kids and provide those kids with a stable life. Like, you can't just pursue the one note.
Correct.
I think video games for me was an escape to, and things could matter because I said they mattered. I was a B student in school because anything above a B, I didn't see the point. I got it. I got the general idea. I don't need to perfect
His philosophy
and so
was
I get
savage
so I
rating
get
right
to
there.
85% and stop. And like, that's so much part of my, I do that in everything I do. I would rather experience 85% of all things than 100% of anything. That is just what I do. That's how I knew the woman I wanted to marry. Not as some romantic awe statement, but it was the first person I'd ever met that I wanted to know 100% of.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I knew there was something different. And so like, I just, the B student in me, then I played World of Warcraft, and to be a B student at top end rating, I found myself creating my own spreadsheets. I found myself wanting to run pivot tables, checking DPS meters to get to the B level. And I found myself doing all these tools. Then I get out into the working world and somebody goes, hey, we have these 2 spreadsheets. And like, I don't know, would you mind manually checking them to see if there's any values different in these? Well, I'll just run a pivot table and just check them real quick. Well, I was just going to assign each person like 100 to check. No, I can check all 4,000 in like 40 seconds.
Yeah.
What? I learned to do that because of World of Warcraft. This stupid skill that I have. And it moved me up in work. I knew so much more about things because using algebra, using Excel, using all these things, they mattered to me in a game because they resulted in something I cared about. I didn't care about a higher test score. What does that get me? Shiny piece of loot. Oh yeah, I want that.
Absolutely.
And so, and that may be a stupid motivation. That may have been a stupid, childish thing that I still have. It's not a bad thing though. And so I think my issue with this is that she says, hey, take note of us casuals. We're important. And I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, she's not
An
wrong.
incredibly big portion of gaming.
Yeah.
The escapism is an incredibly large portion. It's one of the reasons I don't play humans in games. People are like, why do you play a Makote and a Tauren and a Safari? And like, because I don't want to be human. I get to be human all day.
Yeah.
I
Have
love
I ever told
that.
you
I
Julie's
love
philosophy?
being in places that could not exist in real life.
Yeah. Julie's philosophy is to play the opposite of who she is. So she's a short white girl, so she'd play like a tall, like dark male or beastly race because it's like she wants to be represent herself differently in an online world because she can't. Like, you have that freedom of expression.
It's really, really hard to get taller and different skin toned in real life. There's probably an amount of money that does it.
Well, probably for me, like
real difficult. Definitely hard to change to a different species that's never existed. That one is also really tough. So like, I love the escapism aspect of games, but that doesn't mean there's no correlation. That doesn't mean that when you learn a hobby, it's why things like sports and in school districts, a lot of school districts, the one I was in, if you weren't in a sport, they almost pushed you into band or orchestra because there's a skill in learning to do something with other people who you didn't pick.
Yeah.
That you need in the outside world.
It's true.
It's an important part of schooling.
Yeah.
There is a skill in being told you need an piece of information you don't have and knowing how to go out to the internet or a library and source credible, reliable information. Not because you need to know who won some war in some distant country some number of years ago, but because the skill of pursuing and retaining that information is something you're going to have to do time and time again as an adult. So I just found that frustrating that she dismissed that correlation.
I had an unfortunate experience like with the teacher and when I was growing up and things like that, where they were just like actively, like, for whatever reason, everything was always my fault. There was something, like anything I would turn in, always difficult, always just was like, and it's like, yeah. And so my parents though look at me like, yeah, you're going to have a boss like that someday. You're going to have a boss who just doesn't like you. And I ended up having a boss who didn't like me, but because of the life experience I had within an environment where it didn't matter, allowed me to be able to cope and work and actually get promoted over that said boss later on in life because of that experience. And at least I had that the parent guidance to say, okay, well, whatever, I quit. No, you can't quit school, and you could quit your job, but essentially it's like, okay, I know how to live in this situation. They don't like me, I don't know why. Sometimes you just can't fix that. Not everybody's gonna like everybody, and there's might not be any real reason. It's just like, I don't like that guy. So it's like, yeah, was able to work through that situation and able to thrive because of it. So that's the thing. Her thesis here of like, there's nothing wrong with being casual. Like we like 14 wouldn't exist without casuals. Casuals are a lifeblood. That's why I always say that hardcore and casual actually have a symbiotic relationship. They need each other, and that's why whenever they fight over it, it's like, guys, you're hurting yourself. Like, stop hitting yourself. You want harder content, you need more casuals. In fact, one of the videos that we're going to have for you guys this week is what would 14 look like with WoW's budget. Yoshi P said it, and we're going to talk about that here later this week on the channel. So if you're still here watching this video, hopefully you're excited about that video because it's an interesting discussion piece. How would we get there? Well, you know what? If we just had more, like, stop chasing away casuals, we need more of them, and then essentially maybe Square Enix could be able to up its budget, and we could get all kinds of things that we've been wanting and asking for. And the only
like
real
a second ultimate,
like Savage Plus. I don't know. Yoshi P wants to do these things. But there's a real cost, there's a budgetary kind of concern, and how do we get there? Anyway, that's something we'll plan on talking about later this week. Chris, do you have any kind of final thoughts? Because, like, clearly,
no.
Either this person just had a really bad experience, or they just don't really understand gaming culture, and then when you start to weigh in on gaming culture, I just feel like they come off kind of ignorant, or essentially a kind of an elitist casual. In that regards, a toxic
I think
casual.
They were told that video games are not as valuable as books as kids based on the fact that they said they're indoorsy. And I know that when we weren't allowed to play games, we read a lot of books. And so my brothers are big readers. I was involved in sports, so I was outdoorsy in that way. I was in Boy Scouts. My brothers weren't in any of those things. They didn't want to be. And so my parents didn't force them to be. And so they're very indoorsy. And so if they didn't have video games as a big part of their life, books made up a huge portion of the rest. And so when you flex book knowledge and when you say video games are stupid, I think it just pushed further into that, right? It's that dessert you get to have after books, and going and working for a major, substantially well-respected worldwide thing like The Guardian can feel more valuable than maybe somebody who chose to go work for a video game company. But that seems like as a result of your upbringing and a result of your set of values. And thank God the whole set of world doesn't share one set of values, because we need all kinds. So I love that there are people who are raised the way I was, because it's really easy to make friends with them and get along with them, and it helps my viewpoint get recommended. But I also love being friends with people who are raised differently than me and think differently than me, because there's thoughts I would have never had, because I only got to live one childhood. I only got to be one young adult, and I'm only getting to transition into one adulthood. And there's all these other forms of existence that get to be lived through. And I would say that just because you picked your doors and it was the right choice for you based on the evidence you had at the time and your priorities, doesn't mean that other options to you weren't the best choice to someone else. So just don't be so dismissive. This goes both ways, because I found this article because on Crap Post XIV, it's a whole thread of people mocking this article as this is casual, like all these casuals need to get out of games. And like, that's not the answer either. That's not the answer either. It is very much like somewhere in between, and honestly a mix of both. We don't even just need the middle, we need the whole spectrum.
I think that's beautifully well said, guys. Let us know what you think about this article, about anything that we said today's in the video, as well as things that you maybe, if you run into an article and you're like, what did we think about this? Send us that way. So keep sounding off in the comments. And guys, I love you guys. Thanks so much for Work to Game. My name's Brian.
My name's Chris.
Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you have a fantastic day. We hope to see you on the next one. But until then,
take care.